Jody and Jeff and me, we're very, very close. In very few lifetimes, they're close as friendship as we have. We're like brothers.
Let's go for a swim, guys.
No way.
On that water.
Hey, what do you guys think about this?
We're on the beach, and we see this cliff, and it's incredible. And we decide, it's there, let's climb it.
Watch the sand on your feet.
Ed went up first. He's a very, very lanky and strong person. And then I went up because Jody had decided that because I was shorter than he was and he was stronger than myself, he would stay behind to make sure I didn't fall. It was really, really easy at first. There was no problems, and we climbed and climbed. About halfway up, we saw that it was getting very, very, very steep. Very steep. I personally, myself, started getting a little bit scared, and I'm sure the others did too, but we were men, you know.
Watch out, Jody.
We wanted to prove to each other that we can make it up the hill.
Hey, 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 hey. Ah. You okay, Jody?
I make it all the way up to the top, and Jeff wanted to take a picture of Jody. So I went to the other side to look at the view.
Hey, Jody, smile!
I looked back down at Jody, and Jody had absolutely no fear. He seemed very, very in control of the situation.
I'd never heard Jeff yell like that before. He yelled to me, "Go get help, Jody had fallen."
It'd taken us about an hour to climb up the mountain, and I got down in probably a minute. I ran over to him, and I realized that he was going to be in serious trouble.
Hold on, bud. You're going to be okay.
At first, I just didn't want to touch him. I didn't know if his back was broken or his neck was broken, but he was having a lot of trouble breathing.
Oh, man. Ed went to get help.
I put my hand on the back of his head in order to try and gently shift it so that he would be more able to breathe. When I did so, my whole hand collapsed into his head. My fingers were actually in his brains.
Ed found lifeguard Bob Ingersoll, who happened to be patrolling the beach just a few hundred yards away.
As I came upon him, I could hear his breath was occluded. It was very raspy. The way he was breathing, it was possible he had internal injuries. His condition was one of the worst that I'd seen. He needed to be taken to the hospital immediately. There was no time to waste.
Roger, what have we got? Alfred, this guy fell off the rocks. He's sort of in an agonal breathing pattern.
In the back of my mind, I thought he might die. But I didn't want to believe it. I wouldn't let it surface to the front.
LA County paramedics were on the scene within 10 minutes.
Cap, we got a head injury.
I've never realized how much Jody meant to me. I never realized how much I loved him. I never realized what friends actually meant until the medic basically said, "This kid's probably going to die."
A rescue helicopter from the Los Angeles County Fire Department arrived within 12 minutes. Among those on board was paramedic Robert Fullove.
The best location for us at that point was some distance from the patient.
Sorry, paramedics!
We knew that we had a situation that we referred to as a scoop and run.
Okay, guys, what do you got?
This guy, he was broken up. And that meant that as soon as we could get the patient secured, we were going to begin rapid transport.
Jody was rushed to Westlake Medical Center, where a trauma team was awaiting his arrival, including Dr. John Kaderka.
When he arrived in the emergency department, this guy was a mess. He had a low blood pressure, he had a weak, thready, rapid pulse rate.
Pressure, 60-pound
He had agonal respirations, he had obvious head injury where he was unconscious, he had massive chest trauma, he had fractured ribs on both the sides, he had a collapsed lung. This is probably one of the worst trauma patients I've taken care of in several years. I didn't think this guy stood a chance to live.
19-year-old Jody Nolan underwent more than 8 hours of surgery, during which his spleen and part of one lung were removed and numerous broken bones repaired. When his parents, Alice and Truett, arrived from Texas, they found their critically injured son in a coma.
He's received some major injuries to his chest and his abdomen.
I was very nervous about going in to see him for the first time. Didn't know what I would see. I knew he would be on a respirator.
Jody.
I knew that my son may die. And I kept trying to get some reassurance from the nurses, you know, and the doctors. Is he going to make it? Do you think he's going to make it? Is there any way he can make it? And of course, no one could assure us of that. And that's a terrible feeling.
Jody, can you feel my hand? Squeeze it if you do. I told my wife that Jody was running the race of his life tonight and that he may not win it. And we'd have to prepare ourselves if he didn't make it.
Jody, you got another letter today.
Looking at my brother, the thoughts going through my mind were, oh my God, I'm going to lose someone else that's really close to me. And I thought about my family and my parents and what it would be like to have 3 in a family instead of 4.
Your big Bronco's at my house, and I adjusted the carburetor for you.
Either my wife or my daughter or some of our friends was by his side at all times, and we kept talking to him even when he was in the coma. We felt that if he knew we were there, then he would leave us.
The first time I really remember him starting to come out of the coma was a very exciting moment.
Can you hear me, Jody? Squeeze my hand.
This was almost 3 weeks into it, and it was like there's a light at the end of the tunnel.
After months of intense rehabilitation therapy, Jody has resumed a full and active life.
They told me I'd been in this big fall, and I barely even remembered I was in California.
Come on.
I was listening to the radio, some of the songs on the radio I'd never heard before, and it was like waking up Rip Van Winkle or something, just missing.
Here's some of my fancy footwork. Let me show you.
I think Jody was an inspiration to people in the rehabilitation center because he gave it 100%. He would always do more than was asked of him to do. And he did it in a cheerful manner most of the time.
Several years have passed since the accident. The 3 friends are still close.
When I see Jody today, it's absolute astonishment. It is a miracle. I don't think that there's anything wrong with him now. In fact, before I'd always thought, you know, he had something lacking up there, but no, there's nothing wrong with him now, absolutely nothing. In fact, he's more mentally aware now than I've ever seen him.
There it is, right? There it is.
I think it's a miracle to see him today accomplishing things that I thought would never be possible.
Come on now. Roll up.
You know, I thought he'd be lucky to tie his shoes.
When I think about all the people that helped me down the line, and there was a lot of people, I'd like to go and, hug and kiss every one of them and say thanks. I can't repay you, but anytime you need me, I'll be there for you. Three years after the accident, I went back to Point Dume. I felt a part of me was back there.